Hey, it's author and attorney Kelly O'Connell, a practicing New Mexico lawyer with Knockout Radio, offering one sensational message per podcast and wishing you a lovely day. Okay, so today's story: Trump should set up a shadow border office and report weekly. And Biden's casual abandonment of border alone will destroy American Republic. So I noticed that Biden was out of the country, kind of making a mess overseas. And in the meanwhile, Trump has agreed to meet with the Texas governor. And I thought, what if he did this once a week? What if he did a report once a week and focused on the most pressing issue, which is all of these border people? And I want to tell you why I feel that way. But before we get into that, how about some weird news? So here's your weird news. These are family related. Man kills wife and teen who was dating stepdaughter over homophobia, the family says. And it's a Connecticut man was believed to have killed his wife and a young woman who was dating his stepdaughter before turning the gun on himself and blowing his own brains out. And this is in Windsor Lock, Connecticut. And witnesses reported hearing yelling and screaming early Friday. And this was in June 3rd, 2021. And by the time the police arrived, they found 2 women and 1 man all dead at the scene. Dolores Wisdom and husband David Wisdom, along with 18-year-old daughter Lauren Leslie, have been identified by the medical officer and the examiner. And another girl was shot but is going to make it. And this lady is the girlfriend of the deceased. So, and one of the commentaries on this was that it was a particular problem in the black community to accept homosexuality and to fight against homophobia. So anyway, I don't understand why everybody had to die in that case, but here's another one. Man allegedly kills sister-in-law after argument over laundry in Oregon. And this is May 18th, 2021. And this was between Shane Finnell, 25, and he killed 29-year-old Alexandra R. Bloodgood, who was his sister-in-law. And it was really an argument that he had with his brother, according to the Oregonian. Somebody heard a gunshot and called 911, and they found an adult female deceased. And obviously, you'll understand how she died, because the 2 brothers were fighting over laundry, and then the one picked up a potted plant and threw it at the other. Then it's the brother Jordan Arb, and that was Finnell's brother. And so Finnell decided to walk over to his wife, stick a gun in the back of her head, and pull the trigger, a pistol, point blank range, and she died. So I guess that's the ultimate revenge, is to kill somebody's spouse and they still have to live. But it really doesn't make any sense when you have these kind of things. But, there's always more to the story, of course. So let's get into this story. I was thinking about Trump and all the commotion it was causing for him to go into Texas. And so I thought, here you've got a media that's not interested in covering the border, and they are very interested in Trump. They say that CNN lost 2/3 or 3/4 of its audience because they didn't have Trump to kick around anymore. So I'm thinking, Trump goes down there, say once a week, and he gets a border report from the different governors and sheriffs and border patrol people, and townspeople, interviews somebody, and they report that, and then the media is going to attack Trump and say what a piece of garbage he is, and he never cared about anybody who was an immigrant or whatever. But it would highlight and it would bring a light on it. It would do something else in this situation. I think that it would also show that Trump is a stronger leader than Biden, which isn't much of an argument anymore. I mean, Biden can barely talk, and his vice president is not even interested, apparently, in doing her job. And she just had a party in which she invited all of the female senators over instead of going to the border. So, but I think it would really be a phenomenal thing if, Trump is good at getting details out. He could go over some aspects, some detail of the border situation each week and highlight something. And, the first week it could be the numbers of people coming over. The second week it could be the cost to America. The third week could be the number of criminals that are being let into the country. Another week about the cartels and what they do and dropping off kids, and then how much money the cartels are making from smuggling, human smuggling, as opposed to running drugs. So I think it would be sensational. I think it's a spectacular idea. Now, I know Trump is probably a pretty busy guy to begin with, but why not do something that will really put a match to the flame? It'll you have all this gasoline, this kind of metaphoric gasoline down at the border, light it on fire and show the world. So let me get into a little bit of some of the numbers to show you why it is something worth fighting for. Now let's take a look at these numbers here. We've got, if you haven't heard, over 170,000 people crossing the border each month. Now, there's a couple of things to remember. Number one, most of these people, according to my research, are not being turned away. Almost all of them are being allowed to stay, number one. Number two, you've got at least 1,000 more people a day crossing unseen. So that's over 200,000. So 200,000 a month is 2 million in 1 year. Another source says 6,000 people are trying to cross a day from Mexico to United States. Now, here's an interesting thing. The number of Mexicans crossing is down a little bit, and the rest of the surge is Central Americans from the triangle down there. It's just a stunning number of people. Now, who's let in and who is denied? Here's the interesting thing, and I'm going to do another show on the cartel because as I began to research it, it's such a massive topic. I've got to do a show just for that. And here's the interesting thing. The people who were denied entry used to be on a list that was pretty interesting. I would just say it was a lot of different things that you would expect people to be denied for. And now what you've got instead, according to an article from the Texas Tribune called New Biden Rules for ICE Point to Fewer Arrests and Deportations and a More Restrained Agency. So they're trying to be a more loving agency. And how do they do that? Because they're only going to block people coming in with aggravated felonies. Now, you might think that an aggravated felony would include all the felonies that you don't like, but it's mostly convictions of rape, convictions of murder, but not every type of murder is going to be blocked. So some of the people coming across the border are convicted murderers. All right, so here is from ICE's director, Tay Johnson, telling senior officials recently, generally these convictions would not, an aggravated felony does not include drug-based crimes, simple assault, DUI, money laundering, property crimes, fraud, tax crimes, solicitation, or charges without conviction. So you could be charged with murder, you could be charged with rape or killing a child, and they're not going to block you. And so they feel like they've abolished ICE without abolishing ICE because they've brought new rules in. And so there is a lot of people being let into this country who've got very serious convictions that would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law in the United States, and we're letting these people in. Now, how do you think about that? What's your opinion? I want to bring you to some of the past mistakes. Now, when Trump came in 2016, there was already some bad things that had happened. So, obviously, that's one of the reasons he was elected. So, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, estimated in a 2015 report that of the approximately 11 million people living in the country illegally, they had criminal convictions. 820,000 of the 11 million had criminal convictions. From these, 300,000 were felony and 390,000 were serious misdemeanors, meaning that they had spent more than 90 days in jail. So, of the 820,000 people who had committed these crimes, they previously would have been around about almost half of the about 2 million people that could be removed that have not been removed. So that's part of the problem. People who were here and needed to be removed but weren't removed because of various problems, maybe not showing up to court, maybe the government taking its sweet time, whatever it was, or advocates fighting for these people to stay. Now, why would you want to fight for serious felons to stay in the country? What do you hope to gain? Now, just a little bit about the cartels. As Democratic South Texas U.S. Congressman believes that the cartels have made more than $1 billion this year, about $1.2 billion, just bringing people across the border. And when they're bringing people across the border, sometimes they're doing human trafficking. And according to the Bureau of Justice, sex trafficking victims would be 26% white, 40% black, and 63% Hispanic, or 17% Asians. Now, that's more than 100%, but that's compared to the labor trafficking victims. So sex trafficking victims, a quarter white, 40% black, and then labor trafficking would be Hispanic 63% or Asian 17%. That's how that breaks down. So this idea of bringing over Trump once a week he flies to Tucson. Another week he flies to Houston. A third week he goes to Miami. A fourth week he goes to Phoenix or whatever. San Diego, does a report on immigration and gets out there this stunning amount of information and just how terrible it is. You've got serious felons coming in here. You've got people from 160 different countries. Are there really 160 countries out there? Well, the other day I heard it was 90 different countries, so it depends on who you listen to. But we know that if you go to Mexico, if you can get into Mexico, you can get into the United States because they're really not able to stop too many people. Now, the reason that the number of children has spiked coming over is because the priority is for children. Biden has said if you're a single kid, if you're all by yourself, we're going to take care. And so then they will do certain things. They'll release kids. They found a child from Ecuador someplace, 6-year-old girl walking along the wall, and they went and grabbed her. They'll throw people in water who can't swim, so they splash around, and the border agents have to go save these people. So there's a lot of salvations out there being done while an incredible amount of fentanyl is coming across the border, while pedophiles and rapists are coming across the border. And they say that drug cartels are now in charge of the border, believe it or not. But let me just tell you about a story that was put in by the New York Post. Border agents sharing photos of suspected criminals crossing the border. And so they had pictures kind of set up, and 10 of them were hardened criminals as part of that. In the past 4 days, United States Border Patrol agents arrested a murderer, MS-13 gang member, 2 sexual predators illegally present, and They also had pictures of MS-13 members with MS tattooed onto them. And other sectors found 3 sex offenders illegally in the United States. So if you're a sex offender, by the way, typically these people have hundreds of victims. So they would get in here, and people who were molested say that for a lot of them killed their soul, it ruined their life. So how many lives will be ruined? Why does the border, why does Biden's border strategy have to include letting sex offenders in, letting people who are criminals? Why does he want criminals in here? So anyway, I think the best thing to do is to get these set up for Trump. I think it would be great. It would give him something to focus on once a week, and I think people would really get a kick out of it. But more than anything, it would give information, and it would force these networks and papers to focus on what the heck is happening. And so in March 2021, border crossings were up 50%. So 5,156 unaccompanied children in the jail cells that are held by the Border Patrol, 12,000 children in custody, 17,000 unaccompanied migrant children as of March 24th, 681 unaccompanied children on March 24th alone. Think about that. On one day, almost 700 unaccompanied children were dumped at the border. So anyway, we've got a serious crisis. We have to keep fighting it. Thank you for tuning in. I really enjoyed hanging out with you, and I hope that you have a wonderful day tomorrow, and let's meet again for another exciting podcast. Kelly O'Connell, Knockout Radio, and have a good one. Don't forget to sub or put a thumbs up on my videos. Thank you very much. Ciao.